Please welcome our friend, Mr. Brad Meltzer. Brad!
If you didn't play that song, I would just be in deep depression all day.
How are you, sir?
I am good. I am good. We are. It's summer, man. You know what? When summer happens, I don't care where you go or what you do. I am forever that kid on summer break.
By the way, I'm totally with you for the most part. Because because you live like everybody else, school's right around the corner. That part sucks. Summer's freedom. Summer is total freedom.
It's like Halloween. Like, I don't care how old you are. When it's Halloween, I'm 7 again. I got a plastic Batman mask with a little breathing hole that's going to murder me.
Of course,
but I'm ready to go.
Of course you do. All right, so let's get to I Am Wonder Woman. Let me start there. And I will tell you this, Brad, I knew going into this, I hate to admit this because I don't want to look stupid. I knew nothing about her backstory. I really know nothing about Wonder Woman other than like I knew like a little bit from the TV show. I never saw the movies. So I don't feel like I really knew that much about Wonder Woman at all.
And most people don't. You know, when we did, this is obviously the kids' book series for little kids. And when we did I Am Superman, people know Superman. When we did I Am Batman, you know Batman. But Wonder Woman doesn't have that, like, and it's sad, really, but doesn't, people just, as you said, don't know her as well. And, everyone knows the origin of Batman, right? Murder his parents, he becomes Batman. Superman comes from Krypton, fights crime, like meets these nice people in Kansas. But Wonder Woman, even in the comics, like if you really want to get nerdy, there's like 15 origins. She's sculpted from clay. She's made out of, from the gods. She's like, they change her story every time because she's written for, almost a century by men who just don't know anything about women.
Right.
And so when I was writing the book, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to my favorite source. And one of my buddies is the screenwriter for the Wonder Woman movie, the original one, the first one that was so good. And I sat on the phone with him for 2 hours and I said to him, help me crack her because I don't understand her in that deep way that makes me feel like I care so much like the way I care about Superman and Batman. And when I was done talking to him, I was like, I got it. She's that girl on Paradise Island whose, mother says, you're supposed to be here. Don't go risk your lives. Don't go mess with things. Just be the princess. And when Steve Trevor's plane comes down and she has to save him, she's like, Mom, there are these Nazis out there. There are these bad guys out there, and we got to help people. And once I had that sense of compassion, I was like, oh, she's like my daughter. She won't listen. And it's good that she won't listen because she's going to go out and do good with that by not listening to me.
Okay, before like you threw a lot at me there. So before we get there,
yeah.
The part where like she's got all these different origins, like you wrote for DC Comics for a while. They don't tell you, hey, this is like when you start writing for let's say DC Comics hired me tomorrow and they wanted me to do a Wonder Woman story. I could just change however she came to be. Like I would feel like, is there no continuity?
First of all, if you wrote a Wonder Woman story, I would pay for that. Like DC Comics. Can you just imagine for a moment, Elliot, we'd like to hire you for Wonder Woman. Give it all you got. Like, it would just be the greatest story of all that. But so when I went into DC for the very first time, I met the president of the company, the publisher, a guy named Paul Levitz, great guy. And he sat down with me, I'll never forget, and he told me how continuity works. And he said, there's 3 types of continuity. He's like, there's things that will never change. Krypton launches a rocket and Superman comes from there. Batman's parents are dead. You never change it. He said, and then there's like the stories that you kind of read growing up and that you like growing up. And you're like, oh, I want to build off that story. That's a pretty good story. He's like, and those we sometimes follow. The first one we always follow. The second one we sometimes follow. He's like, and then there are bad stories is the third one. And we don't follow them because they're just crappy. And listen, we all know there's just stories that are just, that's silly. Like, when Iron Man has roller skates out of his armor because roller disco was big. We just, as comic readers, we're like, we're going to forget that one.
Right.
And with Wonder Woman, the truth is there's no decided answer. She doesn't have that, like, here's the immutable thing, except for Paradise Island and Steve Trevor coming down on a plane and crashing at Paradise Island. That's the one thing that's always true. But as to how she comes to be, like who's her dad, that changes kind of decade to decade depending on who's writing her, which is crazy to me, but it's just the honest truth.
Does her mom stay the same? Like, so, and well, even back up a step before that, was it hard for you then to figure out what origin story you were going to use?
I knew I never really loved the ones where she's like the child of the gods and the gods made her for, you know, because her father is Zeus or her father is, you know, Ares or her father is some one god who like made her like this vengeance thing. So we actually in the book, I always loved the one where she's sculpted from clay. I just loved it. I just thought it was cool. But what I realized is it doesn't matter. That's the part that what matters is understanding her.
Right.
And what I couldn't figure out is like, I know why Superman does what he does. He met these kindly people in Kansas. So he knows and has the values of Kansas. I know why Batman does what he does. His parents were gunned down in front of him and he wants to stop crime because he's forever a victim, you know, little kid who lost his parents. But as to why Wonder Woman does what she does, I was really like, even as a long-time reader, I'm like, why? Why does she do it? And once I had that, like, oh, her mom is trying to raise her to be a princess and to be a good girl, I was like, as a father, I was like, you know what? I want to teach my daughter to never be a quote unquote good girl who listens to everything everyone tells her. Like, and that's when I was like, you know, these books, if they do anything, it's not just, sure, I can entertain you. And here's a woman, she's got a magic lasso. Look, she's got a plane. Isn't it cool? But that's not why you should buy any of these books. I write these books so you can give your kids lessons and teach them why these heroes matter. And suddenly when I have like, you know, Steve Trevor's plane comes down at Paradise Island, and she says, Mom, I got to go help these people. I got to leave the island. People need help. Then I have a reason for her to fight. And she's, you know, she's the compassion hero, which Batman is not and Superman sometimes is. But man, that makes Wonder Woman something that I want my daughter and my sons to learn about.
So that's the importance of the Steve Trevor plane crash is that, yeah, because like in the book, Brad, like you have her like she's a great warrior, she's being trained by the warriors, she's fast, she's quick, she can do all these things better than everybody else, but her real superpower is she's compassionate.
Yeah, and basically, you know, the thing is she certainly can fight, right? And her mother, she sees every time she's on Paradise Island, and this is my version, like I love this version, is she sees all these Amazons fighting. And she's supposed to stay in the palace. And she's supposed to like have nice meals and wear nice dresses and be the daughter of the queen. And she just likes to fight. She likes watching them. And she's peering around a rock being like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, here's the princess again. And they treat her like she's royalty. They treat her like she can't fight. But when they let her fight, she's better than everybody. And we all know that there are some things in life that we just feel like it's our calling. You know, you feel like that thing that your parents want you to be one thing and you're just like, I can't, I gotta be myself. And that's the entrance to Princess Diana to me, is like, she's this girl who everyone says you have to be A, B, C. And she's like, no, I'm D, E, and F. And I'm X, Y, and Z.
Right.
I'm so far away from this. And to me, that's, you know, the best part of comic books is never the, oh, let's punch the villain and save the bad, you know, and beat the bad guy. The best part of comic books is when they tell us a story about ourselves. And to me, the best part of Superman, and I've said this to you before, is Clark Kent, because we're all Clark Kent. And the best part of Batman is we all know what it's like to, you know, to lose someone and wish we could, like, you know, have them back with all of our soul.
Right.
And I never had that for Wonder Woman. But for me, when you read I Am Wonder Woman, now you know it's like, it's when you have to be that thing that only you know you should be. And nothing can stop you from being it. And especially when it's something that tells you to help other people at all costs, even if it means not listening to your mom, the queen. And I think almost think of it like, it's like the Little Mermaid. Like, I think the Little Mermaid is, you know, the reason listen, mermaids are cool and it's cool to have, like, you know, half people, half fish and great songs. But the reason people relate to the Little Mermaid is because she's like, I'm not listening to you, Dad. I want to know what's out there.
Right.
There's stuff out there, and tell me what's out there, man, because I got to see it. And that's to me Wonder Woman, is she's on that island and her mom's like, just sit on the friggin' throne and be happy. And she's like, but there are people out there who need my help and I got to go. And her mother knows you got to go. And that is what, as a parent, I want for my daughter.
Hey, Brad, let me ask you this. This may be a little bit nerdy. Although, who am I talking
As if
to?
the conversation has not been, right? Oh, let's take a whole new track then of the past 15 minutes.
No, and I had to look this up. So like we're in the Steve Trevor part where he crashes, she's like, I'm going to go help fight the Nazis. I was reading something about you talking about comic books. And you were talking about, like, if you go way, way, way back. Listen, I'm not a comic book guy. I don't know that I've ever purchased a comic book. I don't know. I'm not a comic book dude at all. But I didn't realize this. I was reading where you said something where if you go all the way back to World War II, before the U.S. was involved in World War II, comic books, U.S. comic books, they were already depicting superheroes fighting the Nazis. Is that true?
Yeah, I know comic books were one of the first entry points for fighting Nazis in the United States, even before the U.S. decided to enter the war. And think of it this way. I mean, to really give you the historical nerd perspective, if you look at what comic strips were popular in the Great Depression, they were Tarzan and they were Flash Gordon. They were characters designed to transport you elsewhere because the Depression was depressing. That's why they gave it the name, right? Like they were like, we didn't want to be here. We wanted to be in the 25th century. We wanted to be in the jungles. And then World War II starts encroaching on our shores. And in 1938 and 1939, these heroes start launching, and they make this hero who is bathed in a red, white, and blue, basically, flag. They make this character Superman. And Superman starts selling 1 million copies a week. And they're like, how is it selling? And it's because the country's scared, and we're fearful, and we want someone to come and save us. That's what we need at that moment when World War II starts. And if you look at the first issue of Captain America, he's punching Adolf Hitler in the face. And literally punching him in the face. There's no subtlety. You know, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, making this book, they're like, no, we're going to punch Hitler in the face because they're Jews, and they're two Jewish creators who are young, and they're like, we want to punch Hitler in the face. Captain America punched him in the face. And you get Superman, and you get Captain America, you get Wonder Woman, and these characters start to be used as propaganda in World War II to sell war bonds. But that's, the military, we love to tell the story. Oh my gosh, we entered World War II, we fought the bad guys. We don't want to fight Nazis. The only reason we entered World War II is because Pearl Harbor happened. We wanted to fight the Japanese.
Right.
And slowly, when Hitler declares war on us, we're like, oh, we're fighting Nazis. But all the Jews that were making comic books were like, we need to punch Nazis in the face. And it's pretty amazing. If you look historically, it's comic books that lead the way. And even some short films, you can see it happening too, are the first ones. I think it's Charlie Chaplin does one of the first in The Great Dictator. But it's arts and entertainment take on Hitler long before the government does.
And I'm trying to remember in the Nazi conspiracy, like your last conspiracy book, don't you kind of retell the Superman story in there, don't you?
So here we are. We're writing the Nazi conspiracy, serious book about a plot to kill Churchill and Stalin and FDR, and I'm literally like, guys, we need to include Captain America #1 punching Adolf Hitler in the face. We need to put Superman in this book, and my editor's like, we really do. Like, and I was like, you are the best editor of all time, and yes, we put it in there. But in fact, we got Marvel to agree to give us a copy of Captain America #1 to put it in the Nazi conspiracy. And we can make jokes about it. But to me, we tell these stories about history that make ourselves look good. And we leave out the parts that make ourselves look bad. And we're telling poor history at that moment. And I think it's important, especially when we look at the rise of authoritarianism today, is to remind people that people don't rush to do the good thing all the time. And sometimes it takes those brave souls in art, in government too, of course, but in all these places to say, no, this is wrong and we have to stop it. So if you can't tell that Compassion and Wonder Woman has been on my brain for a while, I mean, it's the same story in the Nazi conspiracy, right? Someone has to say, no, we got to go help.
Right.
Someone has to have the compassion to say that's the wrong thing. And it's the same in Wonder Woman. It's the same in Captain America, and it's why you see it in the Nazi conspiracy all the way to this book.
Hey, so Brad, let me get back to Wonder Woman for a second. True or false question? The guy who created Wonder Woman is William Moulton Marston. I think I have that name right.
Okay, this is great. Tell it. Say it.
Is the lie detector factoid about him right?
He is. He does invent the first, an early prototype of the lie detector, which is the inspiration for Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. He's literally the guy. It's crazy. Isn't that crazy?
That's
the guy
awesome.
Invents the lie detector and then invents a magic lasso that makes you tell the truth. It's like, and that's where the lasso of truth comes from. But I'm a little disappointed because I thought the part you were going to talk about is William Moulton Marston is also in a throuple with two women. and the reason, and this is the best part of I Am Wonder Woman. You ready for the ears? I was like, if you don't, I can't believe you didn't ask about it. So he's in a throuple, and the reason Wonder Woman, if you look at her early stories, in every story, she is literally tied up in bondage. They put like Superman, breaks chains, and Batman swings into the city, and Wonder Woman is constantly tied up like a girl in bondage. And it's because, I'm not joking, it's because men back then and Marston are just obsessed with this. They're crazy obsessed with it. And so we had to put, we always put the characters in the back of the book.
Right.
If you look in the last page of I Am Wonder Woman, the second to last page, there's a guy standing there with two women who my publisher is not finding out until this exact moment that those are his two wives. And I'm like, I can't say it in the kids' book, but if I only show one of them, I'm not telling the truth. So we just are like, listen, draw them in, maybe, like, put them in. And so we put them in the book, and they're just, like, standing there, like, this one guy with two women. And I'm like, listen, history is history. You can't change it. I don't say, like, here's me and my two wives, but that's what he's got.
Yeah, by the way, I'm looking at it. I'm like, yep, there he is but then I'm going to add something to that. So there he is standing with his two wives from the throuple. And then the Brad Meltzer looking guy with the Wonder Woman logo on his shirt, with the little heart above his head, seems to be staring and oogling the guy having the throuple.
No, I'm staring at my wife. That's my wife who's spinning around.
Okay.
With the 27.
No. The way Chris drew it, you're looking beyond Corey, and you are staring at the throuple.
That may be true.
All right, I want to ask you something about Corey.
Yeah.
True or false?
Yeah.
Corey, and listen, Corey is by far the much better half of the Meltzer family. That we know. True or false? Corey, her entire life, never, ever, 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 ever got in trouble at school from kindergarten all the way through college, except for one day when she was yelled at by the teacher to sit down, and she wouldn't sit down until she spun like Wonder Woman.
This is such a crazy true story. I told the story, and it was like an uproar from Corey's childhood, because her kindergarten teacher said, sit down, and she wanted to spin around like Linda Carter. She was like, I'm spinning around. And when Corey spun around like Linda Carter and wouldn't sit down, the teacher put a little sad face next to her name. Okay, this is kindergarten. It was the last time my wife was ever in trouble. And when I wrote that on social media, on my Facebook and Instagram page, a couple kids back then were like, I don't remember Corey ever getting in trouble. And Corey was like, that was my day. And it is like, truly, Linda Carter was the only reason I would make my wife break the rules.
That's awesome. Almost as awesome as you staring at the throuple now that I keep looking at that.
Wait, but did you see what Linda Carter did?
Wait, what Linda Carter did? Wait, where she commented on Corey's story?
So I tell the story that my wife got in trouble for spinning like Linda Carter, and I did a thing where I spin around and like Linda Carter and like turn into like,
yes,
of course, because I have to, because we're doing this, right? But and Linda Carter replies on Twitter and says like, Corey, you've turned into a great woman and you've married a great man. And on that moment, Elliot, I physically died. Like, it was Linda Carter, the original Wonder Woman, writing that I was a great man on social media, which, of course, she's just being nice because she's so nice. But I literally, I was like, oh, my God. It's like I smelling salts came out because Corey was like, what happened? And I'm like, read this. And then the only better part of the story is that when I showed Corey what it was, she's like, oh, my God, it's Linda Carter. What does she know about me? I'm like, she knows nothing about either of us. She's just being nice. And she's like, what else did she say? And I'm like, she didn't say anything. Like, my wife turned into that kindergarten version of herself in no time. It was spectacular.
So now, in doing this, did you not talk to, well, obviously not, Linda Carter and Gal Gadot? Like, did you, like, I know for example, like Billie Jean King, you talk to Billie Jean King, and whenever you do one of these on a non-fictional character, obviously if the person is dead, then there's nothing you could do. But like there's somebody from the foundation or a family member or something. Who, like, I guess you didn't talk to Linda Carter. Did you talk to Gal Gadot at all?
No, because what I talked to were the best Wonder Woman writers that, some of the best that I knew. Like the guy who wrote the movie, Alan Heinberg, is a dear friend. He wrote the original Wonder Woman movie. He and I spent a long time on the phone trying to crack, like, what is the core of this character for kids? That's the one I do. I go through every Wonder Woman comic book and from everyone from Gail Simone and like the best writers in history, George Perez. And that's who, if you look in the book, there's like a group of people standing on the right-hand side. It's all those creators. Comics, one of my favorite stories in the whole book, it actually takes place in Washington, D.C. And it was it's a short story in Wonder Woman. It's like, I'm not joking, it must be like 4 to 6 pages long. And Wonder Woman's walking away. She's at the Washington Monument. And this little black girl comes racing after her. And she's like, Wonder Woman, wait for me, wait for me. And she turns around and someone says, Wonder Woman, listen, we got to go. It's a regular girl. And Wonder Woman says, there's no such thing as a regular girl. And the little girl comes and says, can I give you a hug? And she says to Wonder Woman, as Wonder Woman hugs her, the little girl says, I have your action figure. And and Wonder Woman says, do you? Perhaps someday I'll have yours.
Right.
And I remember reading that and being like, that is the most beautiful thing. That Wonder Woman hugs this little girl and says, I can't wait to have your action figure one day. Like Superman can't do that. Batman can't do that. But Wonder Woman, again, that moment of compassion and kindness is so strong. So I didn't make that story up, but I put it in I Am Wonder Woman because it's one of the best Wonder Woman moments I've ever read. So my research for these are always like, it's just my, 40 years of reading comics, and I just pull the best parts and give them to your kids so you have something that's like a true gift to give them. But it's thanks to all the creators out there who kind of knit this cloth together.
And you know what? Like, I didn't know that story that existed in a previous book, but I had written down to tell you one of the best moments is Wonder Woman standing at the Washington Monument in I Am Wonder Woman. But now it makes sense why that is so impactful.
Yeah, no. And listen, I read that story a decade ago, but I carry it around with me today. Like when I go to the Washington Monument, that's what I think. I'm like, oh man, I remember that moment. Like that, great stories, they don't just entertain us, but they tell us something about ourselves. And best of all, they show us who we want to be. Like they tell us, a potential that we don't see in ourselves. And I read that story and I was like, man, I want to be like that. Like that's the Wonder Woman that I want my daughter to have. That's the Wonder Woman I want my sons to have. Even my oldest son, who, is never impressed with anything I do, was like, this is a good one, Dad. And he's, he's obviously much older than the kids are intended for, but I love the fact that he finally understands Wonder Woman isn't just Superman in a girl's costume. She's something even better.
Right. Hey, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But I know, so I Am Wonder Woman is out now. The next one up is I Am Mr. Rogers. I think that comes out in October. And then Ruth Bader Ginsburg is early next year. But Mr. Rogers, the next one up, you and I texted at some. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, you're right.
No, I was going to say you and I texted at some point. I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, a handful of weeks ago. And you said, wait till you see Mr. And I'm not taking away anything from Wonder Woman. People should definitely get it. But you made it sound like Mr. Rogers, when that gets here in October, is really something special.
No, Mr. Rogers, we've done 30 of these Ordinary People Change the World books. And, obviously I love every single one of them, but there are some that just like part of your soul goes into the book. And Mr. Rogers is I think there's only 2 books. I think it's only 2. Maybe there's a third. That while I was writing, I literally cried. Like I just, and not because of anything I was doing, but just reading his story. And his story it's always a beautiful story, but he's so special and so amazing. And you're just like, my God, why is the world not as good as this man is and was to us? And it was just one of those ones that undid me. We're gonna do an event in Pittsburgh,
right?
Because I'm like, I want to make the journey to where this man came from. And I'll send you the early copy, but I feel like we need to sell it with like tissues, like it just brings tears to you. And Chris Eliopoulos, who again deserves all the credit for Wonder Woman for all these things. He just, is that one moment, and I'm not going to tell you where it is, but you're just like, he draws such a beautiful picture. And on those important pages, when I write the books, I always say to Chris, this is the most important page in the book. Make it great, or do 3 versions so we can see which one is the best, and then we'll look at it. And I always drive him crazy because I want the books to be so good. I'm like, don't just put one version, give us 3. And he gave me one version on this one because he's like, try this one. And I looked and I was like, it's perfect. It's exactly what we want. It's like you can make a poster of this, and I'd put it in every kid's, one of my kids' bedrooms. And Mr. Rogers is just something that the world needs right now. He just does. His messages are more important than ever.
Hey, do you remember what the other one is that you boohooed when you wrote?
I'm pretty sure it was Jim Henson. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Jim Henson is the other one that kind of got to me. Yeah, because there's that moment where right as you get to the end of the book, and I know what moment it was, and he says, it starts when we're kids. And it's a line from one of the Muppet songs. And I couldn't crack the end of the book. And when I started with that, and there's a line that says, there's nothing wrong with being a do-gooder. And it just, you hear those old Muppet songs from the original Muppet movie. And again, they just, they transport me, and I'm suddenly, 10 years old again, and trying to figure out how Kermit the Frog is riding a bicycle, and when there's no puppeteer around, how is magic like that possible? But Jim Henson's the other one. And the only other one that, Abraham Lincoln lives up to the hype, people live up beyond the hype where you're like, there could be more books about them.
Right.
But Mr. Rogers is one of those people who you're like, I could write another book about stuff that I couldn't even put in the book because he has so much kindness that he just puts in. There's a point where, and I didn't put this in the book. I think I wanted to, but I couldn't even have time for it. But there's a point where Mr. Rogers gets his car stolen. And it goes on to the news.
I can't even imagine that. Somebody stole Mr. Rogers' car?
And they stole Mr. Rogers' car, and it goes on the news like someone stole Mr. Rogers' car, and the car comes back the next day with a note that says, if we knew it was yours, we never would have taken it. Even the thieves are like, and I couldn't even put it in I Am Mr. Rogers because I'm like, I don't know where, maybe I put a line in there. I want to show the whole thing, but I'm like, the thieves are like, dude, we can't do it. We can't, I know we're thieves. I know we're criminals, but we're out. We're out. This is one too far for us. I'm just like, that just shows your effect is it's bananas.
Where are we with novels? When is the next one?
That's what I'm working on. Now, truthfully, I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Mr. Rogers, all those are done. We're those will come out in the next couple months.
Right.
But all I've been working on is the new Zig and Nola sequel to the Escape Artist, sequel to the Lightning Rod. And hopefully I have a little more. I do have more to go, but hopefully in the next year we'll be done. And then we're working on the new conspiracy book too at the same time. So
what is it?
Really
what is it?
My energy.
What is it?
I can't say. I'll text
Come
you. I'll tell you what
on,
it is.
no, don't. Because I can't keep secrets. I can't keep secrets.
Right.
Yeah, don't do that.
I remember last time I was like, I was going to tell you, and you're like, don't tell me. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you. You're like, don't tell me. I'm going to tell him. So yeah.
All right, last thing for you, Brad, and then I'm going to let you go. Last thing. The 4th of July picture that you posted on Instagram of you and Corey.
Oh, my God.
Where the hell is
spectacular?
Where is that from?
That is Planet 1988, man. that there is. I said if I said there's an 80s party today and you have to dress up like the 80s, I couldn't find enough accessories to put on what we are wearing in that photograph. My wife is wearing 5-ton earrings, a red, white, and blue headband, scrunchy socks, a necklace, a bracelet. I'm wearing a cut off Brooklyn Dodgers shirt just to show off my arms because I'm in Miami at the time. So it is. I don't have a head of hair. I have a lion's mane of hair that is feathered so perfectly. There is more time spent on my hair than Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. And I found that picture that we took on July 4th, and I was just like, I am posting this thing because, I mean, how epic is that photo? There's nothing more American in 80s than that exact moment that is caught on film.
Although I will tell you this, the only picture that when I was scrolling through that I liked more was the Father's Day picture of you leaning in and your dad giving you the finger.
I found a photograph of my dead father on Father's Day who's screaming at me in the picture, and I'm like, is he giving me the finger? Like, is my father giving me the finger? And I posted it was like to all the fathers out there who know it's really complicated. And the best part is I'm smiling in the picture because my mother's like, smile. So I smile. We're in the middle of a huge fight. So I put on a fake smile. My father's literally in the middle of giving me the finger. I'm like, there's no perfect representation of what my childhood is like than what's contained in this photograph. It's perfect. It's perfectly my childhood. All the complexity and anachronisms and middle fingers that you can have. It's fantastic.
All right. I Am Wonder Woman is out and available now. Hey, Brad, I appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
Love you guys always. Love you.